So you've definitely heard of this concept of women being objectified for their bodies, right? And it's generally accepted that's a bad thing to do. We shouldn't reduce women merely to their body parts. But what a lot of people don't realize is that men are constantly objectified too. Not so much for how we look, although sometimes that's there, but much more for what we produce. Basically, we're viewed as production machines rather than people, okay? And we're kind of like taught this from a lot of different angles in society. We're taught that in order to be a good man, you need to accomplish more, hustle harder, and be productive at all costs, right? So, a lot of guys, we internalize this and we think, all right, in order for me to be a good guy, I've got to become a productivity machine. I need to be this robot that wakes up early, that checks all the boxes and smashes his goals. And the problem with this is that, when you fail, okay, you think the solution is, I got to be more structured. I got to have more willpower. I got to have more discipline, apply more pressure to myself so I can become a more perfect little productive robot. But here's the problem, all right? And the problem is that you are not a machine, obviously, okay? You are a human. And the human parts of you, your emotions, the limbic part of your brain, this mammalian part of your brain that controls all of your neurochemicals, your energy, your desire, okay? That part of you will always rebel against being treated like a programmable tool, all right? It's just like the indelible nature of the human spirit. We want to be free. And becoming a robot is the exact opposite of freedom. When you try to force yourself to become a robot, you're going against your fundamental human programming. The way this happens is that guys, they view it, the goal of personal development of trying to get their emotions to serve their intellect, right? Their intellect, this little optimizing part of their brain. It sets all of these shoulds, all these things that we think we have to do in order to be a better producer, etc., to earn more status and all these things. And we think that, okay, we just got to get our emotions to listen to that guy, to listen to this little robotic voice inside of our head. But in practicality, what this really leads to is that our emotions become the biggest obstacle, right? They become our enemy. All our emotions for like wanting freedom, fun, wanting to goof off, wanting to, eat the junk food, to, play the video games, to scroll the internet. Like that whole emotional part just seems completely counter to this intellectual productivity seeking robotic part of ourselves that's setting all these goals, okay? And this creates a very profound sense of split in our psyche, where we've got our intellect on one side with all the shoulds, trying to get us to be this machine. And then we've got our emotions on this other side that just seems to be turning more and more into like this wild animal that we have to contend with. And we never know when it's going to bust out of its cage and sabotage our progress, either through leading us to bad actions or just leading us to emotional funks or irritability or just depression, like all these kinds of things that tend to happen on the emotional end when we objectify ourselves. We treat ourselves as just, this tool designed to acquire status and produce positive outputs. And in fact, the harder that these two fight against each other, usually the more extreme the ends become. It's like, I see this all the time with guys where they're, white knuckling through their days and then just complete hedonists at night, and they never feel good, and they just get worn down more and more by this till, their life can take a rather dark turn, or they just feel completely stuck and stagnant with no real like spark inside of them anymore to achieve a better life, because they feel like life, progress, all that stuff, it's just a process of, can I get myself to suffer more? And their emotional part's like, I don't want to suffer more. And they just, they're stuck. They're like in a deadlock. So there's only one way to fix this problem, okay? We have to actually reverse the psychological polarity inside of us. So first step is that we realize that we are more than just our outputs. This is what I call dignity. It's like you have an intrinsic, inalienable worth just by being a living, breathing human, okay? That your life has value regardless of what you produce. Okay? And when you can do this, you realize that, hey, actually, since I have an inherent worth, I deserve something more here. I deserve a life that is actually fulfilling. So that sets the groundwork. But then the deeper flip is what we want to do. Instead of having our emotions try to submit to our intellect, we want to turn that upside down. We want our emotions to be the captain, and then our intellect it's just kind of like the supporting first mate. All right, like the analogy I like to use sometimes is, Captain Kirk and Spock. Okay, Captain Kirk, he's like the emotional, charismatic leader. That's what we want our emotions to be. We want ultimately to live from our heart, live from our truest, deepest emotional desires. But, our emotions, they're limited, right? It's a part of our brain that doesn't have advanced reasoning capabilities. And because of that, it can be easily, tricked, swayed, and go in bad directions. So it needs the intellect, the first mate, to serve as like this, advanced companion that can do a few different very useful things. Like one, it can help us clarify our desires, right? So maybe on the surface, it seems like, oh, I just want to use porn right now. Okay, that's the emotional desire. Well, if I use my intellect to clean that up, what do I really want here? Well, maybe what I really want is a break. Or maybe what I really want is a sense of affirmation that I could give myself. Or maybe I wanted a sense of connection. Okay, it's like there's a million different things that you might actually want on the deeper level, but you need your intellect to get after them. And so you can work with the core emotion effectively without falling into dysfunctional patterns. And then further, our intellect will obviously help us find the best paths to our emotional goals. And we got to be careful about giving him too much power, because sometimes he gives a overly optimized path that, is just too difficult for us. So learning how to find that, we call it resonance between intellect and emotion, where, it sounds right, but it also feels good. And if we can do that, if we can find that intersection point, well, then we are going to experience smooth and natural progress. So what you're going to find is that when you flip this model, you put your emotions in charge and then your intellect in this supporting role that, prevents you from lying to yourself and, tells the truth about situations, then you're going to find that your productivity massively increases because it's now driven from your core. You're going to be able to stop escaping from your life and start enjoying it. And generally just life feels better. You're not going to be constantly fighting yourself. So if you've been stuck in a loop of trying to be a machine and wondering why you keep burning out, it's time to recalibrate. All right. And there's probably a few areas in your life where you're falling into this like machine-like thinking, and it's causing you a bunch of issues. And if you want to figure out exactly where you're running into these issues, then I would encourage you to click the link in the description and take our Frontline Man Score quiz. Because in that quiz, we're going to be showing the big bottleneck where you're likely, trying to force something that isn't really aligned inside of yourself. And if you can figure out that spot, then you're going to have a clear action plan of what you need to start doing to take your life to a much more resonant and flowing and natural state. So that's what I have for you guys in this video. Hopefully you got something valuable out of it. Stop treating yourself like a machine. Treat yourself like a human, okay? And I'll see you guys in the next one. Ooh, yeah.